Clear.
Hello, good afternoon to everyone's watching from the Netherlands and also from the UK. It's noon. It's lunchtime, isn't it, Kerry? Yes, it's in
It's lunchtime
and also
over here.
late night in Sydney. Hi, Jackie. Hi, Kerry.
Hey,
So
the things I do for you guys.
Yeah, what we're gonna do, we're just gonna wait for a few minutes, let everyone join before we can start get Kerry to start talking about the topic that we have today, which is know your body, know and love your body. So from the notes that I saw from Kerry, it's like quite a few tips that Kerry is gonna share with us today. So yeah, let's wait until we have many people join us today. And of course, don't forget to tell us where you're watching from. And also, one thing that I want to make sure, after you've heard the talk from Kerry and then you get inspired, don't forget to recommend your friends to come and join this close group. Okay, so we want to create a good community for lots of people and get you inspired with our cookings, with all the tips that we shared by Kerry. So yeah, so it's gonna be a lot of things that are happening in this community, right, Kerry? So yeah, so we're just gonna wait for a few minutes, and then Jackie in Sydney, I want to check with you. What time do you normally go to bed, actually? Every day.
You don't want to know.
Late at night.
I know.
Or do you ever sleep?
That's a good question. I've gone to bed as late as 3 a.m. and then wake up at 6 a.m. I know, and then I'm like a zombie the rest of the day, and then I'll try and steal a nap here and there.
And what time do you have to take Noah to school?
6 hours to get up at 6 a.m. to get him ready for before school care. Yeah. For about part of the week at least. Anyway, other days of the week, I can get away with getting up at 7 a.m. But Paul would know. Paul would know that by the time he goes to bed, I'm actually already up in the morning. It's a little bit sick.
Normally I would get
I always get emails from Jackie, and I'm thinking, but Jackie, you should be in bed.
I know, it's so shameful.
10 o'clock at Dutch time, I will get messages, WhatsApp messages from her. So that means that she's up already. You see? So that's why we're gonna start chatting everything about work. Yeah,
I know. Sometimes I need to avoid all these messages, and I just ignore them. We've got someone from Kuala Lumpur. Hi, from Kuala Lumpur. Yay! Thanks for joining us. If you want us to see your name, just click on the link that says let's give StreamYard permission to display your name or something to that effect anyway in the post. But for those of you who are joining from my Facebook page, because I'm multi-streaming this not just in the group but also on my Facebook page at the moment. For those of you who are joining and have no idea what's going on, this is actually a new initiative that's basically spearheaded by Chef Norman Musa in the Netherlands, and it is called the Seafood Revolution, as in SEA food, Southeast Asian food revolution. Nothing to do with seafood. Well, I mean, not directly.
Yeah, I think that's what we need. Well, I mean, we chose that the title because we want, not to confuse people about the seafood, okay, as if like prawns or fish whatsoever. But so try to attract as many people and to come and discover the revolutionary of Southeast Asian cuisine. That's what we want to do. So I'm trying to find the live on my Facebook here, so probably it's not showing.
You can't in the group.
I can't see anything in the group. Let me just see again.
We'll just check with Paul if he can actually see it. I'm pretty sure it's there because the fact that there's a name there that's not showing, there's a viewer there that's not showing the identity tells me it's actually someone watching.
Can you see? Yeah,
yes,
can you
I
see
can.
okay.
Yeah,
that's really strange.
Yeah.
So where would you go? So would you go to to events or something?
It actually just told me that someone liked my live, which means that they're watching in the group itself. So if you go to the top of the group, it should actually show up. But I also posted a link in the event itself. So you should be able to see it at some point anyway.
Okay.
But yeah, guys, thanks again for joining us. What the Seafood Revolution is to do with Southeast Asian food, and why it's a revolution, why we call it a revolution, is because we have a healthy angle in our approach to Southeast Asian recipes, courtesy of Chef Norman Musa and Kerry, and also yours truly. And we are essentially collaborating to create a new framework with which you can actually enjoy Southeast Asian food, your favorite Southeast Asian dishes, while still achieving your health goals. We're talking about achieving better gut health. We're talking about achieving more energy and a leaner body, if that's what you want, right? So that's the idea. And both Norman and I are actually being challenged by Kerry's input as well regarding the kind of recipes we work with, because it's not easy and it's actually a learning curve for us. But what we bring to the table is the fact that we are, in fact, people who know Southeast Asian food very, very well. We're not just kind of making things up as we go along. So my challenge in this whole exercise is to be able to help you to reproduce all your favorite Southeast Asian dishes. Think of pad thai, think of laksa and all that sort of stuff, satay and all that, right? But still make it healthy and, within the kind of, like I said, the kind of framework that we want to fit into, so that you live a healthier lifestyle. Because the truth is, actually, Norman and Kerry, what we saw, I shared a link in our WhatsApp group last week, how statistically we're talking about heart disease being, like, I think one of the top killers in Malaysia now. Because I think
I have to admit that my dad passed away in 2006 due to the heart attack. So I remember it was quite quite sad actually, because he went to visit me in Manchester and I spent the whole month, and then we supposed to fly back to Kuala Lumpur together with my mom as well the next day, and he just collapsed. So and then he passed out. So and then of course, we took him to the hospital. It was like really kind of chaotic, and then I couldn't understand what was going on and everything. So we kind of like, and then my mom, I told my mom to fly the next day with my friend at that time in Manchester, because we were supposed to go 4 of us together. And then I waited for my dad to feel a lot better. But again, the doctor didn't want to release him, discharge him from the hospital. And so it was like a heart problem that he suffered, and unfortunately, like 2 weeks after, and he passed away in Malaysia, in the hometown, in this favorite village house. So I think so that was what happened in 2006.
And that's a really good point, actually. Now that we're at the start of this community and we're starting on our journey, and we've been talking about health objectives, and one of the things I was going to say is actually looking at your family. So looking at your grandparents and your parents, and if there's a condition that runs within those lines, then obviously when you're assessing your health objectives, that's got to be one of them. You've got to feature that. So it's quite interesting, because we talk about health and we think, oh, what should my health goal be? For a lot of us, it's, I want to lose a few kilos, or I want to look slimmer in my jeans, or whatever. But actually, there's a much more important aspect to health objectives. And so you've hit a really good point there, Norman, that it's looking at your family tree and understanding what's going on there.
Since then, because again, my late mom, she died of a diabetic 4 years after. And then it was kind of blow like to our family, because see, that's the thing that I noticed. Like, if you don't practice your healthy eating or diet since you were young, and then it's going to be a habit for you, like, to get used eating non-healthy and all that. And it's very difficult to change that when you're getting older, when it becomes like a habit. So that's what I noticed, and it was very difficult to tell our late mom, for my sister, my brother, to stop her from eating like non-healthy food and all that, because it becomes like a habit for her at that time. So and then the tactic that we use, instead of like stopping her from eating it, we give her a small portion. So it was only about craving. It's not about like she was eating like a lot, like a big portion whatsoever. So just like the craving. So you can see that it was a habit rather than like she wanted to eat a lot, you see. So so anyway,
well,
go on.
Well, I think that's a really good point to start with. So it's looking at your family tree and what history you have. But it's also important to think that nutrition isn't a one size fits all. So what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for Norman. So I know Norman's been to the gym this morning. He needs a few extra calories.
That's a habit now. That becomes a habit. Sorry.
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah. So it's very much unique to us. And so we've got to really think of our health objectives to be unique to us and what our body actually needs. So what I wanted to do today is just run through 3 or 4 little things you can do at home. Don't need much in the way of equipment, just to try and understand your body better and what your body might need. So as we're starting on our journey, the very beginning of our journey with our new community that we're forming, we can start to think, actually, what is it I want to work on? So first of all, look at your family tree, as we've said. But secondly, a really sort of easy thing, and something we've probably all been doing all our lives, is hopping on the scales and looking at our weight. Now, the weight itself probably in most of our lives carries too much importance, because at the end of the day, it is an indicator. But it's a useful one, because even from when we were babies, when we were first born, our weight was a sign of how we were thriving, how we were developing as an infant. Now, when we're older, and it's important to say all of these things I'm going to talk about are really for adults as opposed to children. Now, it's a sign of when something might be changing. So, for example, Norman's been to the gym. A sign that his gym sessions are working, maybe that he's putting on a bit of weight because his muscle mass is building.
Thanks for pointing that out. Okay. Look. Wait. Let me show you what I've got here. So this is my tool. Like every day I will weigh myself. If I've gone like more than 500 grams, I'll get panicked. And then trip to the gym is a must. Sorry, Kerry, go on.
But it could be muscle mass, you see, because with typical scales, I mean, you can get the scales that have the body composition, but I'm talking about basic scales, will show you a weight. It won't tell you your fat composition, your muscle mass, it just gives you a weight. And from that point of view, it's a signpost. It's a signpost to say something is changing. You've gained weight, you've lost weight, something underlying is going on. Okay, so that's your first point. Once you've got your weight, you can then go on to look at something else, and that is your body mass index, your BMI. So this is assessing your weight versus your height, and therefore giving a sort of understanding of how your mass is as a whole. Now, again, it's not a faultless trick because it doesn't take into account muscle. So you could be a rugby player, short in stature, very muscular, but your BMI might be high. It's a bit misleading, but it's a guide, and it's a useful guide. And interestingly here, there's been researchers who identified that actually in the Southeast Asian population, the BMI readings should be slightly different to, say, a European person, which is really, really interesting and important. So for the average European, like me, for example, my weight to height, and that's my weight in kilos divided by my height in meters squared. Don't get hung up on that. Put it in your search engine, BMI calculator will come up, just type in the figures. It'll give you the reading. My BMI should be between 18.5 and 25.9. And that's for any sort of European, so a guy, a woman, whatever, adult person. For Southeast Asian people, the researchers have actually identified that the way fat is distributed, weight is carried, the BMI healthy limit should actually stop at 23. So for a Southeast Asian person, you need to be looking at that 23 as your ideal weight limit. So that's quite interesting, and that carries through into some of the other bits, some of the other little tips I'm going to talk about. So it's not a perfect measure, it's another picture it's another piece of the jigsaw as we're gathering this sort of health idea. Okay, so once we've got our weight, we've got our body mass index, we can then go on and get a very simple tape measure and measure our waist circumference. And people might think, oh God, why do I need to know my waist? Actually, out of all of these tips I'm saying, this is probably the most revealing. So you want to measure just above your belly button, and your waist circumference actually gives us an idea about your fat distribution, so where you're laying down fat. And it's this abdominal fat that can be quite dangerous. Now, typically, if we've got a bit of belly fat, most of it will be what we call subcutaneous. So it's fat that's just underneath the skin, and it's the fat you can pinch. That's about 90% is subcutaneous. About 10% is what we call visceral fat. And this is what is deep in our abdomens, and it sort of accumulates around organs like the liver and the pancreas and the intestines. And it puts pressure on those organs, but it's also what we call active fat. And you might think, wow, how can that be any different to normal fat? It is, in that it actually starts to influence how the body is working. So this visceral fat produces messengers, and these messengers can, for example, interfere with how the hormone insulin works. And insulin is really important for managing our blood sugar levels, and therefore for protecting us from something like diabetes. We can also get messengers from this visceral fat, which are actually pro-inflammatory. So they trigger off inflammation, just low-level inflammation in the body, which over time can be really wearing and quite damaging for the body. So your waist circumference is actually quite an interesting and really important measure. And again, there's some guidelines here. So for a European, the measure for a woman would be that you'd want a waist circumference less than 80 centimeters. And for a man, you'd need to be less than 94 centimeters. For Southeast Asian population, it's mainly the men that we focus on here, and your waist circumference should be less than 90 centimeters. Any higher than that, and it may suggest that you are at risk of things like heart disease or diabetes, or things like dementia. So it's a really simple yet quite important measure that can indicate whether you should be working on perhaps trimming a little bit of that middle fat.
Okay, Kerry, sorry to interrupt. So when you say there's a difference between European and Southeast Asian people, are you gonna tell the reason why there's a difference? Is it because of the diet? Yeah.
Well, that's a really important thing. So at the moment, research is still really assessing the mechanisms that lie behind how we lay down this abdominal fat. And we know there are things that influence it. So things like diet, so particularly things like carbohydrate foods, so high GI foods, which we'll talk about probably next week. Actually, we can talk a little bit more about those. So the amount of carbohydrate and the type of carbohydrate in your diet. It's also amount of protein. So are you eating enough protein? There's also aspects of lifestyle. So whether you smoke, what sort of stress levels you have, how you sleep, your genetics. That's a really important part. Ethnicity is important, and cultural things like diet will come into that. But other mechanisms, I think we're still learning really to fully understand. Right. And then other things like alcohol consumption can really play a part there. And really interestingly, with alcohol consumption, it's more patterns of drinking. So if you don't drink during the week and then you drink at weekends, but you have about 4 units in a sitting, you're still going to be prone to putting down visceral fat. So pattern of drinking as opposed to just drinking is important. So there's lots
I think that's a culture. Yeah, that's a culture that in Southeast Asia they don't have like a binge drinking like in the UK or in Europe.
Okay.
I think it's only in UK. It's like now that I've been living in the Netherlands.
You're slurring us now.
Well, I don't think I'll be allowed to go back to the UK after this. But what I noticed, like other countries, they're more kind of sensible when it comes to drinking. It's not part of the culture. I think it's got to do with the culture as well, right? So because I noticed like like in Malaysia, for example, people they want to meet, if they want to meet up with friends, they always look out for somewhere to eat. And whereas in the UK, it's more about going where to drink instead of like, So that's, I think it's got to do with the culture as well. I don't know about in Sydney and Australia, do they eat or drink?
If you're Asian, you eat. If you're if you're white, you drink.
I think that's the thing. So I guess like everyone who's watching, like maybe they can tell where they're watching from, and they can tell us like what kind of a culture in there where they live. Actually, that'll be interesting to know. Yeah. Sorry, Kerry, go on. Yeah.
So once we know our waist circumference, we can then go on to assess our waist to hip ratio. So we get our faithful measure again, and we do measure our hips at the widest point. And then we divide the waist by the hip. And this can give us a ratio. And again, it's giving us an indicator of whether our body shape is a healthy body shape or whether we're more prone to heart disease, diabetes, certain forms of cancer, and potentially dementia. So ideally, again, there's measurements and they vary. So for Europeans, a woman, you'd want a waist to hip ratio less than 0.85, and for a man, less than 1. But for Southeast Asians, for women, 0.8, and for men, 0.9. So again, a slight variation there.
Can I ask, because people talk about like body shapes all the time. So if someone like, say, for instance, has a particular body shape that's more like, straight down as opposed to someone who's more voluptuous, does that mean that they are at a disadvantage from a health point of view and they need to work harder to reduce their waist? Or
not necessarily, because it's proportions again. And also you'll find, because there may be some people watching today and they're thinking, well, I'm fit, healthy, I'm young, I don't need to do these. But actually, these are good baseline measures. So just to get these sort of readings and to note them down for the future is a good idea. And the reason I say that then is because as women, Jackie, you and I, our hormones influence our body shape to a certain degree. So, for example, when we're in our reproductive years, hormones will influence laying down of fat in a different area. So predominantly hips and thighs, really. So that will affect our waist to hip ratio. When we enter the menopause, our hormones will influence fat laying down, where it lays the fat down in a different way. So it will influence the upper body more. So that will impact our waist to hip ratio. So the lack of estrogen will mean we will lay down fat in more of a sort of male pattern. So upper body, waist, abdomen, rather than hips and thighs. So yes, shape will influence your waist to hip score, but it will also be influenced by your life stage, your age, and all those sort of things, and genes as well, to be honest.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's one other sort of simple thing you can do at home, which is resting pulse. And this is really just, taking your pulse rate. It assesses how efficient your heart is at pumping. And typically we'd look at a resting pulse between 60 and 100 beats per minute. It's an easy reading to do. You should allow 5 minutes of sitting quietly before you do it. And it is a good assessment of your heart function. So really sort of doing those simple things, weight, BMI, waist circumference, waist to hip ratio, resting pulse, can all give you an idea of how your body is functioning. They're all signposts. That it's not giving you definitive answers, but it is giving you a guide as to where to focus your attention. And then you might have readings from the doctor or GP, like blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, which may also help you reach your health objectives. So really, by just doing these, it just gives you a direction as to what your health goal should be in a more focused way.
How often should you weigh yourself?
Every day. Every day.
I think Norman's a bit too. I wouldn't do it every day. And actually, for females as well, we vary as well depending on our menstrual cycles. So it does does fluctuate. So I would say monthly, maybe.
Really?
Always do it at the same time of day, and try and do it in in the same sort of conditions, so you're getting a similar sort of routine.
I think I normally do mine like every morning, because I think that's the best time actually to weigh yourself, right? But the issue that I have with my body, like I can easily gain weight. So if I eat something like a day before, a night before for dinner, and then so I'm gonna put on weight easily. But I'm sure again that depends. Yeah.
Well, again, and it depends what you've eaten. So if you've eaten a fairly carb-rich...
I'm not telling you what I've eaten.
If you've eaten a carb...
We can just look at his Instagram.
I will.
I won't post anything. Well, maybe I do allow myself at least once a week to kind of like be naughty, put it that way. Okay, so
it's all things in moderation, isn't it? It's about balance at the end of the day. But if you eat, say in the evening you ate a carb-rich meal. So, for example, I think the other day you went out for a biryani, didn't you?
Bastard.
I think and so say
I did. That was like the regret after the next day was like, why did I mean, like, I think it's got to do with the portion. I mean, like, I have to control my portion, but I get so greedy when it tastes so good, I need to eat more. No, I didn't need to stop doing that.
So if you went for quite a rice heavy meal, that's a lot of carbs. And any excess carbs will be laid down in the body first as glycogen in your muscles. And glycogen, when it's stored, is stored with water. So a lot of your weight gain may actually be fluid. And once you've been to the gym and you've worked that glycogen off, you may find that your weight actually goes back to normal.
Yeah. I think it's got to do with the liquid as well, like how much you consume. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sorry, can I just check? Sorry, Jackie. Someone, Ronita Yasin, just say that she just posted to say, hi, is it on? So I don't know whether, can anyone, just want to make sure that everyone's watching here, because I don't know whether they saw the link.
Yeah, that's strange, because I posted the link in the event itself. So Paul's saying it's all working okay.
Okay.
So she just needs to click play on, like, if she responded, is she commenting within the event itself?
Well, I think she posted.
I am watching now. Is that her? She says
hi. So that's Ronita. Yes, that's good.
Cool.
Thanks, Ronita. Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I wanted to ask about rice actually in particular, because people seem to, I think, rightly or wrongly think, Asians are also skinny and they eat rice all day. So what do you have to say about that?
Right. Interestingly, there have been studies that have shown that white rice, if eaten regularly and to a certain, in quantity, can present more of a problem. And that's because it's carbohydrate and it's refined carbohydrate. And all carbohydrates are converted to glucose in the body. And too much glucose in the body can cause diabetes. So eating too much rice, can put you at risk. But there are things you can do. And certainly on the journey with us, we'll be certainly looking at rice in particular, because a lot of the Malaysian dishes and the Southeast Asian dishes, really, white rice is like a key component, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's a staple food,
So it's definitely something that we are going to address in the recipes to make sure that we're stabilizing that release of blood glucose and not having such a dramatic impact on how the blood glucose is. So
I mean, when my late mom was visiting, she visited me twice when she was still alive, and I have to make sure that I cook rice for her every day, because it's like she must eat the rice every day.
So and when you did that, Norman, was it just plain sort of boiled or steamed rice, or did you add
just plain rice, and then of course, I mean, you eat with curries or any like a meat or chicken or beef and all that. and that's a very typical Malaysian style. It's not just Malaysian, Southeast Asian generally. So
but
and then you must
the important thing there is also portions, because when you're adding a protein rich food like a curry, then you're lowering the overall, we call it glycemic load of the meal. So it will have less.
I think we saw a lot of posts discussing about the cauliflower rice. I think that's something that we can explore a lot more, you see. But it's down to mentality as well. Like some people, they're still not happy because it's not rice. It's like, even though it's alternative ingredient. So I think it's going to be a challenge for us, Jackie, for both of us, and also Kerry as well. So we're going to come up with something that's going to look really exciting. And so hopefully that's something that we're going to achieve for this campaign movement.
And it's also methods. It's not just the ingredient itself, it's also the cooking methods can make a real difference. So we'll be working.
Jackie, have you tried, and Kerry, have you tried the egg rice, or no, egg, how would you pronounce it, like cauliflower fat rice or something like that?
I've done it before. Yeah.
So what does it taste like? Because I'm going out to the supermarket after this to buy some, just try.
I mean, I thought it was pretty decent, because I actually cooked it for my website one time. I thought it was decent, but did it make me rush out and replace rice with cauliflower? No.
No, because I've eaten pizza with a cauliflower based.
And how was it?
Actually, really good, really good. Yeah. So so it's like it tastes almost similar like to the normal dough, the base.
Okay.
And one thing I noticed about, let's talk about pizza. I know it's not related to Southeast Asian food. Like the pizza obviously been changed. Like when you go to Italy, you will see the pizza is like so thin, like it's not like a thick pizza. I think the American completely spoiled the look and feel of pizza, I think. So I hope there's no American here.
Kerry, we have a question from Kun here about Jasmine rice. Apparently he's stopped eating Jasmine rice, now only eating basmati because of the low GI. Will that make any difference? He wants to know.
Yeah, so basmati is better, and it's because of the starch, how the starch is formed actually in the basmati rice. So yes, it will. It is lower GI. It will make a difference. Quantity and portion size also important. If you wanted to change from basmati, then something like wild rice is also a good option. And also, don't forget whole grain, unprocessed. Is going to have a low GI as well. I would say also mix and match. Don't always have the same rice.
I think it's going to be interesting. It's going to be, most people are going to find it difficult to kind of switch just like from the normal jasmine rice to the brown rice or something. But I think you can gradually, what I would do is gradually, like first you cook like a mixture, half portions of jasmine rice, half portions of brown rice, and then gradually like change that. I don't know, Jackie, you've seen the nasi dagang Terengganu. What they do is like a glutinous rice and also normal rice.
And they use the red rice.
So that's something that I think I'm gonna use that approach, but obviously using the healthy type of rice, and cook something similar for the dish like that. So that's for something we need to cover in future.
You can also do is add turmeric to the water, and then all of the rice will look the same because it'll all go that beautiful yellow color. And so if you're cooking for somebody and you want to disguise it,
just don't tell them, okay? Just don't tell them. If you're cooking for that, just don't tell them.
This specialty turmeric rice.
That's a good idea. Kerry was talking about the portion, like if you eat rice with protein. But what I noticed in Malaysia when I was filming over there with a Malay crew, when we go out and eat the the rice buffets, they have like a mountain of rice and just like one little piece of chicken wing. It's like, so they do eat a lot of carbs. Am I right, Norman?
Yeah. It's always about like they always go for the second round or third round. It's always about the rice, the quantity of the rice. It's just so I think that's something. It's down to individual. Like if they can tackle that, try to stop themselves from eating too much rice, because you will only start feeling full after you've eaten like it's just a time, isn't it? So that's why I think the European always have courses rather than like have a banquet style, like all together at once, because you gradually start feeling full like after the first course, after starter, and then main course, and then dessert is always an option whether you have it or not. But for me, it's like it's always hit and miss anyway. But in Malaysia, it's like a buffet style, as much as they can put on the plate. And that's why I hate it when you go to the Ramadan buffet, for example, during the fasting month. People become so greedy, and then it's a waste, and they couldn't eat all at once. Yeah, so that's something that I think I'm gonna run a campaign, try to stop, get the government to stop that Ramadan buffet at the hotels. You see, yeah. Anyway, there's a question. There's a note from Zara. Say it took me 1.5 years to lose 15 over kilos, and after that I put on weight 6 kilos in just 5 months. So I mean, well, she or he is like blaming it on the scale. So
on the scale.
but I think no, I think that's just a joke anyway. On the scale. But yeah, that's actually a good point, because like, why is it so easy to put on weight but very difficult to lose weight?
Yeah, weight loss should be done slowly and steadily. You're far better approaching it as a long-term project rather than trying to reach a short-term goal. And it's also about how you do it. So it's very easy to lose weight if you're being very drastic, but at some point you have to return to normal, and that's when the weight can go back on. So the best way to lose weight is with a long-term objective and to change your eating patterns. So very much like what we're doing here, it's about establishing new eating habits, new ways of cooking, so that they become part of your life rather than being on a diet. We don't want anyone on a diet. We want to eat healthily and eat a healthy, balanced, in a healthy, balanced way. Yeah. So and it's also how she did it, because it could be that you could lose a lot of weight. So like I was saying about carbs, you can lose a lot of glycogen that's stored in your muscles, but as soon as you eat a carb-rich meal, it goes back because you're storing glycogen again. So.
But from your point of view, is it healthy to lose weight in a very short time? It's like
again, it depends on the individual, but for the majority of people, it would be better to lose weight over a longer period on a steady basis. So you're gradually losing pounds rather than being too drastic about it. But some people, under medical supervision, may need to lose weight quicker.
Yeah. Okay.
We have our chef Dave. Say hello. Hey, Dave.
Hi, Dave. So sorry, going back to your notes, Kerry, is there anything else that you need to cover? Because you mentioned some good points there. Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to just finish with is just to say to people, if they've got a health objective, put it in the comments, so that as we're going forward, we can take those health objectives into account. Because as I said,
that's a good point,
it's a very personal journey, this, and what we want to do is to really focus in on what people want and what their health goals are. So please put them in the comments and let us know.
Yeah. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of other people like watching this video again, and then come up with some comments, I'm sure. Yeah, so do that, because three of us going to be reading all the comments, definitely. And
Hamima saying, I was truthfully very happy there was no buffet last Ramadan. It is totally sinful, so much waste. Malaysia is notorious for that.
So to be honest, 2-3 years, I think about 2 or 3 years ago, this 5-star hotel asked me to design their buffet, a Ramadan buffet menu. So I introduced all this like a fusion style, like rendang beef Wellington, for example, and then Scotch eggs, but make it like a small portions, healthy kind of a size. It was very popular, but to look at the people who were there, and then moms like put everything on their plates, and then the annoying bit was they couldn't manage to eat them all, and then they left the food on the tables, and then left. Yeah, so it was so annoying, and to see how much food was wasted because of the greed, and because it's not cheap as well for them to pay at the hotels. I mean, to have this Ramadan buffet, so they try to make worth every penny or every cent of what they paid. You see, because they're not allowed to take the food home. Yeah, so that's why I think the Malaysian government should ban that. It's true, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
In the UK, we would ask to take the food home.
Yeah,
we would get a doggy bag and take it home.
Yeah,
there's some buffets where they actually charge you for anything that you don't finish.
Really?
You know, so it prevents
you have to come up with all sort of ideas just to stop people from becoming so greedy and then waste like all sort of food. That's just not right.
Yeah, but I like for those of you who are wondering what seafood rev is, it's basically like what Kerry was saying. We're talking about stuff in moderation, so we're not trying to completely eliminate all your favorite things, right? Because it's not sustainable, in my opinion. Like Paul, our co-founder, he does the whole zero sugar thing, and I don't think I could do that. Right, but
not for Malaysians, because we have sweet tooth. We like our sugar.
Zero sugar and like keto and all that sort of stuff. I find I would struggle to sustain that. So I prefer our new framework where we actually work within certain rules to produce something that's still delicious, but that is also healthy for you as well. That's our aim.
Absolutely.
They say every year during Ramadan, more food is wasted than other time because of all these buffets. There you go. Yeah.
Right. Cool. We got about 3 minutes left. So is there anything that Kerry, do you want to mention to all the viewers? Yeah.
Just recap. So with the signposts that you can do, have a think about your family history. Take your weight, check on your weight. Look at your waist circumference. Look at your BMI, look at your waist to hip ratio, and if you want to, do your resting pulse. But then it's also about maybe your doctor's told you blood pressure, cholesterol, whatever. But then decide what your health goals are going to be, jot them in the comments below, and we'll take a look. If you don't have any health objectives, great, brilliant, fine. Yeah. Let's just enjoy the journey together and learn new things about cooking and eating amazing food.
Yeah, because the other thing that we'll be covering as well is also for you to learn to cook for people who do have special diets,
Yeah.
So
it's
you
not
might
just
not
about
be vegetarian, but just about everybody, every family just about has someone who's vegan in there nowadays. So, you have to cook something up for them. You need to be able to learn those skills. Miranda's asking a question. Why are body measurements so important? I'm only 1.60 meters and not 1.72 meters, which is a norm in Holland for women. My waist would also be different.
Basically, they're signposts. So what I'm saying is that these measures have been shown to be indicators of what might be going on in your body. Now, it doesn't mean they are definitive. Your results are definitive because, as I said, if you could be a short rugby player, incredibly muscular, but have a really bad reading on the BMI. So it's not a foolproof reading. It is just an indicator, a signpost. And it's just to give people ideas of where perhaps they can focus. And we're all different, and we all like to put people in boxes, and we can't do that all the time. So it's just a piece of the jigsaw that might be useful for some people.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay, good advice. Yeah, good. Okay, so we've got a minute left. Is there any more questions, Jackie?
I'm going to ask you about intermittent fasting because that seems to be the big thing nowadays.
Okay.
What's your take on that?
Let's extend a bit for a few minutes on that. Yeah, so go on, Kerry.
There's growing research on intermittent fasting. Originally, it was mainly just animal studies, but now there's a lot more human studies. Yeah, some really interesting stuff coming out. There was a study that looked at women who had suffered from breast cancer, and a fast of 13 hours overnight reduced their risk of it recurring. And so some really interesting things. There's lots of different ways of doing it. Probably the overnight fast, so choosing what we call an eating window in the day. 16-8 is something that you typically see, where you eat within an 8-hour window and you fast overnight for 16 hours. So you're adjusting your breakfast times and things like that. Can really be effective. They can help with controlling hunger signals, so they can control your appetite. Can help sort of reprogram how your insulin management is working. It also provides, it sort of boosts the body into a sort of spring cleaning process called autophagy, where old cells are sort of dealt with. So yeah, intermittent fasting can be really, really useful. And so it's not just what you eat, it's also how you eat and the patterns of your eating that can all influence your health. So yeah, really interesting stuff, and there's going to be more to come on intermittent fasting.
So are you eating the same amount of calories but within a smaller window, or are you just eating like?
Yeah, it can be that. Yeah. I mean, some people say, well, because I'm only eating within eight hours, I'm actually eating less because I'm not having that snack later, before I go to bed. So some people may not be eating quite the same. Other people who only maybe have 3 meals a day are eating those 3 meals a day within that 8 hours. So,
okay.
So yeah, it varies really.
Okay.
And it doesn't
have
have to
before.
be.
Have you done it before, Jackie? Jackie, have you done it
before?
Yeah,
in the past, yeah.
Yeah, I've done it before. It's actually very effective. So I'm kind of happy with my weight now, so I don't have to do it anymore. It's actually very good. And I heard like it helps with the people with diabetic as well, right? So so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so is there any more questions, Jackie, that we need to?
Azara just said she ate her dinner at 7 p.m., munched a biscuit at 10 past, but by 2 a.m. she was already hungry.
No, that's that I was like that actually. I was like that. So, but I stopped having biscuits at like 10. Normally, being like a partly British, like always have my tea about 10 o'clock at night, which is not a good habit at least. Because and I always have a biscuit with a tea. So so now I kind of like try to balance it with there's actually a good tea of mint and green tea combined together from Twinings. It's actually really good. So I tend to have that now at night. Well, when I say at night, about 8 or 9 o'clock. So yeah. So any more questions? So before we say goodbye to everyone?
That's it. I think, I thought of something and it's gone out the window, but I'll ask you next time. All right. I'll take notes next time.
Okay. Let's leave that for next time. And then, So, and then of course, I'm going to be back tomorrow. So I'm going to run a cooking demo. So it's a prawn curry. I thought it's quite catchy. Prawn curry. So it's actually quite quick to do that, but there's some bits that I need to show during my demo as well. So I'm going to be back at 1 o'clock tomorrow. Well, that's Dutch time, to 12 noon in the UK, and also late at night in Sydney. But I think in future we're going to try to see how we're going to change the timing. But in case anyone miss it out, so they can always watch the recorded video.
Yeah, sure. We had quite a few Australians complain about it being really.
We're going to say goodbye. Thanks anyway for watching. Yeah, they can always watch the recorded video.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Thanks everyone for watching. Yeah. So. Yeah. Okay. Bye.
See you all. Thanks again, Kerry. Bye.